was all your fault.
My fault?
Yes.
You care to explain that, citizen?
If you hadn't arrested me, I wouldn't be here in the first place. And I'm gonna stay here until I'm caught or until you apologize.
The law can't apologize.
That's just it. You're not the law anymore. Now apologize. I think I deserve that.
I've never apologized.
1995. A year to be remembered here in Ireland, if only for having the hottest summer in over a century.
You also said that potato consumption as well as consumption of other food has gone down quite dramatically this summer.
Yeah, due to the hot weather, it's causing problems in the market. Normally we would be starting to sell potatoes now, and we just have to hold off because the market's not there.
A summer where I spent my Saturday nights in the cool dark of an air-conditioned cinema, watching movies, some of which would become modern-day classics, and some, well, not so much.
Ryback's tactics.
Ryback?
That's what it says, Ryback.
Casey Ryback? Jesus Christ.
Who's Casey Ryback?
But this was a summer, slap bang in the middle of a wave of comic book adaptations. From a Hollywood which assumed that any comic book property would be able to emulate the success of a by now flagging Batman franchise.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
And the perfect example of this is Judge Dredd, a film readers like myself of 2000 AD, the comic where the character still appears every week, had been eagerly awaiting for years. Even the film's director, Danny Cannon, as an 18-year-old, had sent a concept poster of a Judge Dredd film to 2000 AD's letters page in 1987. And I gotta admit, Harrison Ford would have been an interesting choice as Dredd.
Get off my plane.
But when Judge Dredd finally arrived in theaters in that summer of 1995, like a melting ice cream in the heat, the result was a mess. An entertaining mess, perhaps, but still a mess.
I knew you'd say that.
A movie where the studio seemed less concerned on the quality of the finished film than its merchandising potential, from meal deals to action figures.
Justice in every action pack! Judge Dredd! Pack sold differently!
A production that would be riven with internal politics and conflict as a director who was only making his second feature film dealt with a leading man with an oversized ego and screenwriters and producers who had a very different vision for the property they were adapting for the screen. So it came as no surprise when Judge Dredd failed at the box office. But 30 years later, in an era of lazy CGI, multiple re-edits and reshoots to fix problems with even the most basic of cookie-cutter screenplays, isn't it time we gave Judge Dredd another look? Judge Dredd. So, what did I think? North America, 2139. And in Megacity 1, crime and overpopulation run riot. To control the chaos, a new form of law enforcement was created. The judges, police, jury and executioner, all in one. And the greatest of them all is Judge Dredd, played by Sylvester Stallone. Adapting Judge Dredd for the screen was always going to be tricky. Dredd was no clean-cut costume superhero with a secret identity and a frustrated love life. Instead, he was a dark, satirical commentary on America itself. The dichotomy of a hero who was a symbol of unbending, incorruptible justice, but also the symbol of a fascist police state.
I am the law!
While the helmet he never removes obscures his humanity, his very individuality. As Dredd's creator John Wagner put it, justice has no soul. A character willing to sentence entire rival megacities to death in stories such as The Apocalypse War, but also in the name of that justice is willing to question the very system he serves in stories like Tales of the Dead Man and Letter to Judge Dredd. Unfortunately, none of that subtlety or nuance ended up in the finished movie.
I knew you'd say that.
In fact, it rapidly became clear when Judge Dredd the movie finally arrived in 1995 to both fan and ordinary cinemagoer that in almost every aspect of the finished film, something was off. Now, the opening of Judge Dredd is deceptive in its brilliance. With Mega City 1 as it was in the comic, as much a character as Dredd is. Director Danny Cannon chose to introduce cinema audiences to Mega City 1 and its staggering vastness with an opening credit sequence that shows the vision of production designer Nigel Phelps. This was Phelps' debut as a production designer. Phelps had previous roles in the art departments of films as varied as The Company of Wolves to Full Metal Jacket, before working with Anton Furst on Batman as a conceptual illustrator, designing the film's main locations. Here, Phelps, inspired by the art of the comic and with the aid of Douglas Trumbull's effects company Massive Illusion, using miniatures and matte alongside the camera work of alien cinematographer Adrian Biddle, creates the overwhelming sprawl of the overcrowded Mega City 1, a cinematic vision of the future, the equal of Fritz Lang's Metropolis or Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. A warren of concrete and steel canyons where vast city blocks rise high into the clouds, dominating the skyline, plunging those at street level, caught in their shadow, into a permanent twilight. Even with the briefest of glimpses we get of the world outside the city's walls, from the blighted cursed earth to the industrial tyranny of Aspen Prison, Phelps' designs bring an atmosphere, a characterization to this world lacking in the far more critically acclaimed Dredd from 2012. While director Danny Cannon shows, at points, the potential promised in his debut feature, The Young Americans, it was reported that Cannon, who was being held up alongside fellow directors like Paul W.S. Anderson as the future of British cinema, had been offered Die Hard with a Vengeance, but had to decline as he was already signed up to Dredd. So, with so much talent and dedication behind the camera, the question has to be asked, what went wrong? And the answer is, outside of the opening 15 minutes, almost everything else, in particular the screenplay and its star, Sylvester Stallone. To this day, die-hard Stephen E. D'Souza, who wrote the screenplay alongside Terminator 2's William Wisher, lay the blame for Judge Dredd's failure at the feet of director Danny Cannon. But to paraphrase Akira Kurosawa, with a bad script, even a good director can't possibly make a good film. And while the screenplay for Judge Dredd isn't bad, it's hardly revolutionary in its mediocrity, failing to even pierce the layers of characterization that Wagner gave both Dredd and his world over the decades. Instead, D'Souza and Wisher turn in just another generic 90s action picture with a science fiction setting, while seeming to refuse to even approach the themes that made the character so popular. We only get the briefest glimpses of satire that Dredd was loved for.
They're killing each other in there.
Could have gone out the window.
40 floors? It would have been suicide.
Maybe, but it's legal.
While the writers choose to completely avoid the moral quandary of a hero who works for the order and stability of a police state, leaving the viewer pining for films that tackle the same premise with far more depth and substance, such as 1993's Demolition Man.
We're police officers. We're not trained to handle this kind of violence.
But the writer's greatest crime is perhaps Rico, played by Armando Sante, the rogue judge who in the film's third act is revealed to be Dredd's clone brother. Here it's played as a mystery, hinted at throughout the movie by the bizarre contact lenses both actors wear. But in the comics, this was never a secret. In fact, it's a core element of Dredd's character. Dredd and Rico are literally the same person, clones of Fargo, Mega City 1's first and greatest judge. It's a story of yin and yang, Dredd becoming the unbreakable paragon of the law, while Rico and Fargo's other clones show flaws, some would say a humanity, that Dredd does not exhibit, leaving him to question Fargo's bloodline. Here, however, there is no measured nuance. Instead, it's explained away with the simplistic reasoning Dredd's perfect genetics means he's good, Rico is flawed, thus he is evil. Moving on.
This way to the cafeteria.
Which brings us to the performances, and the film's second major problem, its star, Sylvester Stallone. See, Stallone can act when pushed, but in those great Stallone performances, he understands the material and was often involved in the development of their screenplays. People forget Stallone is an Academy Award nominated screenwriter. But here, it's obvious Stallone doesn't understand the material, because his performance is a void, a black hole around which the rest of the cast orbit, desperate not to be dragged in. As the San Francisco Chronicle put it at the time, Stallone is blank, tongue-tied, an immovable slab. The rest of the cast do their best with the material they're given. Diane Lane is fine in the thankless role of Judge Hershey. Her optimism and positive naivety a close interpretation to the character's first introduction in the comics.
I have a personal life. I have friends.
Rob Schneider as Fergie, Dredd's comedy sidekick, physically as different as night is to day in casting from the character in the comic, after the producers failed to secure their first choice for Fergie, Joe Pesci.
Well, I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Schneider was reportedly brought in by Stallone, having worked together on Demolition Man, and although Schneider has come in for criticism for other film performances, here he's trying to bring some range to his character, certainly more than Stallone.
I am the law. Can't.
But the film belongs to Armand Assante. One suspects Assante read the screenplay and realised that a low-key performance really wasn't going to work in this film. And it may be over the top and crossing into pure Hammett points. But hey, at least he's trying.
I must be a judge.
Order!
Order! Knock it off!
As I said at the start of this review, Judge Dredd is a mess, and a mess of its own making, whose production was riven with internal conflict between its director, producers, and star, all of whom had very different ideas of what the finished film should have been. The perfect example of this being the soundtrack. Stargate's David Arnold had worked with Cannon on The Young Americans and was seen as the obvious choice to compose the score. But rumour has it that the producers saw Arnold as a friend and ally to the director and had him replaced with Jerry Goldsmith. But as production deadlines passed, Goldsmith had to drop out as he was committed to other films that were to be released that year, with Predator's Alan Silvestri finally being brought in to replace Goldsmith. But Silvestri found himself making adjustments to the score continuously as the film went through a butchering of multiple re-edits, not under the supervision of the director, but of the producer and its star, in a vain attempt to attain a PG-13 rating. You can tell the moment on screen where the original ending was dumped, only to be replaced with something straight out of Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery.
Complex will self-destruct.
Come on, let's go.
The complex will self-destruct.
Unsurprisingly, the film flopped. Director Danny Cannon, as a result, vowed never to work with another big-name actor again, while Stallone's reputation was damaged, having two releases that were critically derided that year: Dredd and Assassins, a film perhaps today best known for Antonio Banderas' subdued performance peeing into a bottle. But here's the thing. Perhaps it's fond memories as the summer of 1995 was one of the best in my life, or perhaps as a 2000 AD reader, I was just happy to finally see a version of Judge Dredd and Mega City 1 on screen. But despite all its flaws, I really enjoyed Judge Dredd. Yes, it's rubbish, but it's fun rubbish. And 30 years later, it holds up, unlike some modern-day blockbusters. 2012's Dredd has a far superior story and better leading man, but it lacks the visual audacity of the 1995 film when it comes to sets, costumes and vehicles that the bloated CGI spectacles of today lack. 1995's Judge Dredd is nothing more than a B-movie piece of schlock. But it's schlock that will entertain you. I will say go watch it, but when you do, I advise you, watch it on the biggest screen possible and be amazed at a film that must be considered one of the best visual achievements of the 1990s.
I knew you'd say that.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
And if you like this episode of So What Did I Think and want to see more, please hit that notification bell and click like and subscribe. Always subscribe. Thanks for watching.